Good morning, everyone. Today, what I wanted to try and do was show you how to use a directional light before we get ready to turn this project in. So in your resources project, at this point, we should have all the textures added, but we want to try and make it a little more photorealistic using a directional light. The directional light will do a couple of things. It'll let us control how dark or how light our textures appear on the screen. But more importantly, it'll automatically generate shadows, and that's what'll make this look more like a photograph. So to do the directional light, all I'm going to do is change my toolbar. In my tool sets, I just changed to OpenGL there to make this a little bit faster, but I'm changing my tool sets to my visualization tool set. Now what that lets me do is have a tool that's the light tool that I click on. The default light tool is the one that we're going to use, and that's just called a directional light. We'll do a whole separate unit on the lighting package in Vectorworks, but for today, I'd like you to just use a directional light. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change to wireframe so that I can see that light icon better. And I'm going to put in my directional light just right up here above the objects. For now, you can use all these default settings. If we wanted to change the color later or the brightness of the light, it's really easy to do. But you can see now that my icon has shown up right up here. What I want to do is make sure that I have that aimed towards my objects so that the shadows are cast down on the board. I can move this whole light around by grabbing a hold of it and dragging it around, or I can edit and move the light inside to point it in any direction I want. Think of it just as like a flashlight that I'm trying to move around. So I'm going to point it down onto my objects. I'm going to set it right there. And when I go back into View, Rendering, Final Quality, I should have shadows generated on my board. And you can see that it created the shadows of all the objects. That might not seem like a big deal, but that really is one of those little features that make these look more like a photograph. If I wanted to change those shadows to make them smaller, I could angle the light down at a different direction. So what I'd like you to do is experiment with that directional light on your resources project. And one last thing I wanted to mention was, you'll notice that as I zoom out, my light icon is still here. When we use some of the other lights, we don't want them to show up. So if I want to make that light icon disappear, I can go to Tools, Workspaces, or Tools, Options, Vectorworks Preferences, and in the Display tab, I can set up so that my light objects only show up in wireframe. Now that'll look like the icon disappeared, but the light is still there. You can see the shadows right here. So the light is still there. If I wanted to edit or change that, I would just go into my View, Rendering, Wireframe, and I could select that light and work on it. That's adding a directional light. I'd like you to try to do that on your resources project so that we show up all of our textures nice and bright before you turn that in.